If your guitar playing journey was anything like mine, you probably came across DADGAD tuning from one particular riff. But DADGAD tuning has a long history and is useful for a lot more than just playing Zeppelin covers at your high school talent show and trying to impress everybody with not only your able guitar playing, but also your nuanced grasp on geopolitical tensions on the Indian subcontinent. Just me? I already told you I was a nerd.
We're crushing this video.
So let's talk about DADGAD, sometimes called Celtic tuning instead. As you might have guessed by now, DADGAD is tuned like it sounds. Low to high, it goes D, A, D, G, A, D. So basically you're tuning your sixth string down from E to D, and you're tuning your first and second strings down to D and A, respectively. In modern music, DADGAD was popularized by 60s British folk guitarist Davy Graham, who himself was a big influence upon Jimmy Page, as well as many others. You might know Graham from his acoustic folk instrumental Anji. I think I'm saying that right? If you don't, you should definitely check that out. I'll put a link down in the basement. Allegedly, Graham had heard a musician playing the oud in Morocco, really liked the sound, and basically just kind of played around with his guitar's tuning until he got it to a place where he felt like it kind of evoked the same feeling as the oud did. In the years since, DADGAD has been employed by countless guitarists, including Rory Gallagher, Roy Harper, Jeff Tweedy, Russian Circles, and of course, the great Jimmy Page. A bit of fine print here. Jimmy Page, as you may guess, did not use Stringjoys in the recording of any of the Led Zeppelin albums because Stringjoy was not a company, and I was not born. In fact, none of my employees would have been born back then either. So, obviously, he wasn't using ours, and we're not saying that he was. Just, talking about a cool tuning. So, the thing that makes DADGAD so unique is its killer drone potential. If you're playing in D, you've got 3 octaves of D available to you at any time. That's your root. And you've got 2 octaves of your 5th, that'll be A in this case, available to you at any time as well. So you can move chord voicings around while droning on the top or droning on the bottom as you see fit, depending on the part of the song that you're playing or whatever. This is part of why I think this tuning sounds so Celtic to us, is because those droning notes sort of emulate the droning notes that you get in like bagpipe music or anything like that. What's so nice about this tuning for people that are used to playing in standard tuning is that your 3rd, 4th, and 5th strings are still tuned to the exact same as you would expect them to be on a normal guitar. And if you're used to playing drop D, as I know so many of you are, then your lowest 4 strings are going to be all the exact same as you are in drop D. So there's not really anything all that sort of funky going on the bottom end of your guitar, and you can play it pretty much the way that you would expect it to. So basically you can focus on using strings 3 through 5 or 3 through 6 like we talked about, just like you normally would, but you've got sympathetic drones available to you both above and below. Sorry. Additionally, because the open strings are so sympathetic to anything in D, as long as you're playing in D or capoing and playing in a different scale as you see fit, then you can pretty much create lush and open soundscapes while just fretting single notes sometimes. So obviously we weren't going to get through this video without talking a little bit about what string gauges you should be employing if you're playing in DADGAD tuning. So if you're just going to be playing in DADGAD occasionally, maybe this video inspires you and you want to fiddle with it, or maybe you're playing in it for one song out of a set, maybe 10% of the time or something like that, you don't necessarily have to go with a custom gauge set of strings in order to work perfectly for DADGAD. You're only tuning a step down on a couple of strings, so a set that's balanced for standard tuning is going to be able to handle that okay. You're going to get a little bit of buzzing maybe here and there depending on how your guitar is set up, but again, nothing that's going to be, treacherous for you in any way. But if you're expecting to keep a guitar in DADGAD full time, of course you're going to want to have a specific set of strings that's going to balance really well in this tuning. Now if you want to dial in something perfectly for your particular guitar, you're welcome to use our string tension calculator at tension.stringjoy.com, but I've got a couple of rules of thumb that I think will help you to arrive there without putting in all that work if you just want some sort of simple things to keep in mind in order to dial in a set for DADGAD. So since in DADGAD tuning you're only tuning a full step down on the 1st, 2nd, and 6th strings, a nice easy little rule of thumb to use is to take the strings 1, 2, and 6 from a set that's a full gauge higher than whatever set you're typically using and plug those into the set that you're typically using. So in this case, if we're using a set like 10s, 10 to 48 in the case of our balance set, we would take the 1st, 2nd, and 6th strings from a set of 11s and then sub those in. So this way, even if you don't want to customize a set of strings through us, if you just want to buy cheapo strings from the store or whatever, if you get a set of 10s and a set of 11s, or a set of 9s and a set of 10s or whatever, you can combine them to make a set that's going to work really well for DADGAD. So for electric, if you want a feel that's going to be really similar to 10s, I'd recommend going 11, 14, 17, 26, 36, and 50. And for acoustic, if you want a feel that's going to be pretty similar to 12s, in that case you'll want to go 13, 17, 24, 32, 42, 56. But whatever gauge you want to use, again, just kind of use that rule of thumb to look at the gauges in your set, pull a couple of gauges from the set, the next, full gauge higher, and you can kind of Frankenstein those into being a set that's going to work really well for DADGAD. So I hope this video inspires you in some way to pick up DADGAD or a different alternate tuning and see if it inspires you to make different music than you would have before. One issue that I see a lot with guitarists is that I think certain tunings get locked into canon as a certain thing. So people will play in DADGAD if they're trying to play, very Celtic music, or if they're trying to play certain Jimmy Page tracks, but they don't necessarily use it for other things. But as we laid out today, where you're really just kind of keeping strings 3 through 5 the same, or 3 through 6 the same as they are in drop D, and adding some drone notes, I don't feel like you necessarily have to use it only to emulate bagpipes or something like that. I think it could sound really good along with delay pedals and reverb to create really lush sort of droning soundscapes, or on an acoustic or 12-string acoustic or something like that, just to really add a really nice flavor to that. So I would encourage you, wherever you are in your playing journey, to try different things, and more than anything, don't get locked into what you think something is supposed to be used for just because it's been used for that in the past. There's plenty of ways to arrive at the same thing or a slightly different thing, plenty of ways to evoke your voice. That is the goal of music after all. So whether that's in DADGAD or a different tuning, I hope you'll give it a chance and try it and see what kind of happens for you.